Your skin tells the truth. And the truth is, the skincare industry has spent decades hoping you'd never find this out. An Amish grandmother in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, no clinic, no needles, no $800 sessions, walks into her 70s with skin that stops strangers cold. Firm, smooth, alive. Her English neighbor down the road spent $400 every 4 months on Botox injections. My grandmother spent nothing. Her skin told the story. And then the neighbor asked what she was using, and everything changed. 3 ingredients, passed down through generations of Amish women, still mixed in kitchen bowls today. By the end of this, you will know exactly what those ingredients are, how to use them, and why your grandmother's kitchen may have always held the answer your dermatologist never mentioned. This is not about vanity. It is about knowing what women once knew before the industry convinced us to forget. Let's be honest about what Botox actually does. Not what the ads promise, what it actually does. Botox is a purified form of botulinum toxin. It is injected directly into facial muscles. It paralyzes them. That is the mechanism. Paralysis. The muscle cannot contract, so the skin above it stops creasing for 3 to 6 months. Then it wears off. Then you go back. Then you pay again. The average session runs between $400 and $800 per visit, every few months, for years. That is not a treatment. That is a subscription. And what does it not do? It does not restore elasticity. It does not rebuild collagen. It does not repair skin at any cellular level. It does not address the root cause of aging skin. It freezes one symptom, while the underlying tissue continues to thin, sag, and lose its structure beneath the surface. The side effects are real and documented. Drooping eyelids, bruising at the injection site, headaches that last for days, asymmetry that can take months to resolve, and perhaps most visibly, the loss of natural expression, the face that cannot fully smile, the eyes that cannot fully crinkle at the corners the way they used to when something was genuinely funny. There is a cost to that, beyond the financial one. It is the cost of looking like yourself. Plain truth, passed down through generations of plain people. My people never trusted a needle to do what good food and old recipes already do. That line sounds simple, but it points to something the industry has never wanted you to examine too closely. Because if the remedy is already in your kitchen, the clinic loses its power over you. And that is a problem worth billions of dollars to the people who built their business on that power. The Amish community's long-standing relationship with plant-based skincare would later become the exact thing that defined the remedy we're about to examine. But in 1850, it was just the way things were done. Amish women in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania have never had a Sephora. They have never had a dermatologist on speed dial. They have never had a loyalty points card at a cosmetics counter. What they have had for well over 150 years is knowledge. Specific, tested, generational knowledge about what the skin needs and where to find it. And here is the thing that researchers and outsiders consistently underestimate when they first encounter Amish communities. The women do not look their age, not in the way we have been conditioned to expect from women who have spent decades working outdoors, raising large families, and living without the conveniences of modern beauty culture. They look different, calmer in the skin, firmer, more even. It is not genetics alone. The same families, when members leave the community and adopt modern diets and synthetic cosmetics, show accelerated visible aging within a single generation. That is not a coincidence. That is data. Researchers who have spent time documenting Amish health outcomes have noted it repeatedly, quietly, in papers that never made the front page of a beauty magazine. The skin tells the story of what went into the body and what was put on it. And the Amish story is remarkably consistent across generations. But here is the detail that everyone missed at the time. The Amish approach to skin was never about skin. It was about life. Diet rich in whole fermented foods, raw milk pulled warm from the cow each morning, cultured butter churned by hand, lacto-fermented vegetables pulled from root cellars in the dead of winter, feeds the skin from the inside in ways that no topical cream can replicate. The gut-skin axis is not a wellness trend. It is a biological reality that Amish women were living proof of long before the term existed. Outdoor physical labor, consistent sleep tied to natural light cycles, and communities structured around low chronic stress, these are not lifestyle choices. They are the biological conditions under which human skin was designed to age slowly. Cortisol destroys collagen. Chronic stress accelerates cellular aging at a measurable rate. The Amish, by the structure of their daily lives, simply carry less of it. They wake with the light. They work with their hands. They eat food they grew themselves. They go to bed when the sky goes dark, and their skin reflects every single one of those facts. Generational knowledge passed from mother to daughter, refined across more than 100 years of real-world use, produced something that clinical trials rarely can: longitudinal proof. The same remedy, used by the same families, observed across multiple generations, producing consistent results. No placebo effect survives 4 generations. No trend lasts a century in a community that discards what does not work. These women are not sentimental about failure. If something stopped producing results, it would have been dropped from the recipe long ago. The fact that it wasn't is the most honest endorsement any remedy can receive. The remedy at the center of this is 3 ingredients, all of them sourced from the farm or the hive. All of them used in combination in a specific way that maximizes what each one does to the skin. Amish women did not stumble onto this. They refined it. They tested it on themselves, on their daughters, on their daughters' daughters. They adjusted ratios. They noted what worked in winter and what worked in summer. They kept using it because it worked, and they kept refining it because they paid attention. The kitchen table was their laboratory. The results were written on their faces. The outside world, meanwhile, built an industry worth over $500 billion globally, selling synthetic solutions to a problem that these women had quietly solved in their kitchens. Retinol, hyaluronic acid, peptide serums, collagen boosters, each one marketed as a breakthrough, each one requiring the next breakthrough 6 months later. The Amish remedy has not needed an update since before the First World War. Think about what that means. While laboratories churned out new formulations every season, the same 3 ingredients kept doing the same work in the same farmhouse kitchens. Quietly, consistently, without a marketing budget. The women who carry this knowledge do not talk about it in terms of beauty. They talk about it in terms of care. Caring for the skin the way you care for a garden. Consistently, with the right inputs, without shortcuts, and with patience that a quarterly earnings report cannot accommodate. There is no before and after photo. There is only the slow, steady accumulation of years of doing the right thing and the face that results from it. The 3 ingredients are raw honey, cold-pressed castor oil, and beeswax. Each one does something specific. Each one addresses a layer of aging that Botox never touches. Together, they form a remedy that works at the surface, in the deeper dermal layers, and at the barrier level simultaneously. And none of them require a prescription, a clinic, or a needle. The Amish women who still use this remedy today are not doing it because it is trendy. They are doing it because their grandmothers did, and their grandmother's skin was evidence enough. They celebrated the simplicity of it. They shouldn't have assumed the rest of the world would ever be allowed to find out. For a while, things actually seemed fine. The remedy stayed quietly inside these communities, passed in handwritten notes and spoken instructions, completely invisible to an industry that would have had every reason to suppress it. That didn't last. It is 1987. A research laboratory in New Zealand is running tests on wound samples. The lead scientist, Dr. Peter Molen, is looking at something that doesn't make sense. His data keeps pointing to the same conclusion, and that conclusion is about to turn an entire industry on its head. Raw honey is killing bacteria that antibiotics cannot touch. Not processed honey. Not the golden syrup sitting on supermarket shelves. Raw, unfiltered honey. Thick, cloudy, pulled straight from the hive with its living enzymes still intact. Dr. Molen leans over the culture plates again. The bacterial colonies are gone. Not reduced. Gone. And then he made the one decision that changed everything. He published his findings, He put the data out into the world. And the skincare industry, for the most part, looked the other way. Here is what raw honey actually is. Not what the label on a grocery store jar tells you. What it actually is at a molecular level. Raw honey is a humectant. That word gets thrown around in expensive serum descriptions all the time. But what it means in plain terms is this. Honey draws moisture from the air and pulls it deep into the layers of your skin. Not sitting on the surface, not creating a temporary illusion of hydration, actually pulling water into the tissue itself. Fine lines don't just look reduced, they are reduced. Because the skin has been physically plumped from within. You can feel the difference within minutes of application. The skin feels heavier, denser, more substantial under your fingertips. Press 2 fingers to your cheek after applying raw honey, and you will notice the resistance has changed. The tissue feels fuller. That is not imagination. That is water being held inside the dermis. But the humectant effect is only the beginning. Raw honey contains hydrogen peroxide, naturally occurring at low concentrations, produced by an enzyme called glucose oxidase. This isn't the harsh bleaching chemical you find in a brown bottle at the pharmacy. This is a controlled, gentle oxidative compound that triggers the skin's own repair mechanisms. It signals to your cells that work needs to be done, and your cells respond. They begin the process of turnover. Old, damaged surface cells make way for newer tissue underneath. The skin brightens. The texture refines. Not because something foreign was applied to it, but because the skin's own intelligence was activated. The process is slow and it is quiet, but it is real. You will not see it happen. You will see the result of it having happened weeks later when you look in the mirror and something is different and you cannot immediately name what changed. It also contains antioxidants, flavonoids, phenolic acids, catalase. These compounds neutralize free radicals, the unstable molecules that break down collagen, accelerate cellular aging, and leave skin looking dull, thin, and creased. The Amish grandmothers applying honey to their faces every night weren't thinking about free radical theory. They didn't need to. The results spoke for themselves across every generation that followed. And then there are the enzymes. This is the part that changes when honey gets processed. When manufacturers heat honey to make it pour more easily, to give it that clear liquid consistency that looks appealing on a shelf, they destroy the living enzymes. They denature the proteins. They turn something biologically active into something that is, for skin purposes, largely inert, sweet, caloric, nutritionally present, but stripped of the compounds that make it remarkable, which, looking back, was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The decision to prioritize shelf appearance over biological function, and then charge consumers a premium for the result. The Amish never made that trade. Their honey came from their own hives, kept on their own land, harvested by hand, and used within months of extraction. Local honey, raw honey, honey that still had living enzymes, active antioxidants, and naturally occurring hydrogen peroxide doing exactly what nature designed it to do. They didn't know the biochemistry. They knew the results. They knew that the woman who used the honey from her own hive looked different at 60 than the woman who didn't. That was enough. Here is what cloudy honey means and why it matters. When honey crystallizes, when it turns opaque, grainy, or thick, that is not a sign that it has gone bad. That is a sign that it has not been processed. The cloudiness comes from pollen particles, beeswax traces, and natural proteins that survive only in unheated, unfiltered honey. Clear, perfectly liquid honey has almost always been heated. Cloudy honey is the real thing. When you are standing in a store looking at labels, you are looking for 4 words: raw and unfiltered honey. Not organic alone, not natural alone. Raw and unfiltered. If it's cloudy, that's confirmation. If it pours like water, walk away. Dr. Molan would look back on this moment and wish he'd made a different call. Not the publication of his findings, but the years he spent trying to convince an industry already committed to synthetic solutions. He spent nearly 2 decades fighting for clinical recognition of what Amish women had already known for generations. His research eventually gave rise to Manuka honey's medical classification. But the broader implications, that raw honey in any unprocessed form carries profound skin-restoring properties, that message got buried under marketing campaigns and proprietary formulations worth billions of dollars. The remedy stayed quiet. The industry stayed loud. It is 2009. A clinical trial is underway at the University of Benin. Researchers are testing a compound most Western dermatologists have never thought to study seriously. The compound is ricinoleic acid. The source is cold-pressed castor oil. And the results are the kind that make people in expensive laboratories very uncomfortable. Ricinoleic acid is not like other fatty acids. It is structurally unusual. Its molecular configuration allows it to penetrate skin tissue at a depth that most topical compounds simply cannot reach. It doesn't sit on the surface. It doesn't form a temporary barrier. It goes in. And once it's in, it gets to work on the structures that actually determine how old your skin looks: collagen and elastin. Collagen is the protein that gives skin its firmness. Elastin is the protein that gives skin its ability to snap back. Together, they are the scaffolding beneath everything you see in the mirror. When you are young, your body produces both in abundance. As you age, production slows. The scaffolding weakens. Skin sags, creases, and loses the tension that once made it look alive. Botox addresses the surface symptom. It paralyzes the muscle. It stops the crease from deepening. But it does nothing to rebuild the scaffolding underneath. The structure continues to deteriorate while the surface is temporarily frozen in place. You are paying to pause the clock on one layer while every other layer keeps aging beneath it. Cold-pressed castor oil does something different entirely. The real question is what happened behind closed doors when early clinical data on ricinoleic acid started showing collagen stimulation and increased skin thickness. Because the data existed, researchers had it. And yet, it never made it into the mainstream conversation about anti-aging skincare. It never appeared in the glossy magazine recommendations. It never showed up in the $300 serums being pushed by celebrity dermatologists on television. What showed up instead was retinol, hyaluronic acid, peptide complexes with trademarked names, compounds that could be synthesized, patented, and sold at extraordinary margins. Castor oil, cold-pressed and hexane-free, costs about $12 for a bottle that lasts months. The math is not complicated. The incentive to suppress the conversation is not complicated either. The Amish already knew none of this required a clinical trial. Amish women used castor oil for everything: hair growth, joint pain, skin healing after a burn or a cut. It was a homestead staple the way salt was a homestead staple. Not a specialty product, not a luxury, just something you kept on hand because it worked and you knew it worked. The bottle sat on the same shelf as the vinegar and the lard. Grandmothers passed it to daughters. Daughters passed it to granddaughters. The specific compound doing the work, ricinoleic acid, didn't have a name in their vocabulary. It didn't need one. They had something better than a name. They had 100 years of results. Here is what cold pressing means and why it matters enormously. When castor beans are processed using heat extraction, the cheaper, faster, industrial method, the temperature destroys key healing compounds. The ricinoleic acid degrades. The fatty acid profile changes. What you get is a product that looks like castor oil and smells like castor oil, but has been functionally gutted of the properties that make it remarkable for skin. Hexane, a chemical solvent, is also used in heat extraction processes, and residue can remain in the final product. Cold-pressed and hexane-free means the oil was extracted mechanically, at low temperature, with no chemical solvents. The ricinoleic acid survives intact. The healing compounds survive intact. The difference between these two versions of the same oil is the difference between medicine and marketing. The skin doesn't lie about which one it received. Consistent use of cold-pressed castor oil increases skin thickness. It increases firmness. It doesn't do this overnight, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling you something. But over weeks of regular application, the collagen response is measurable. The elastin response is measurable. The skin begins to behave more like younger skin because it is, at a cellular level, being given the materials to rebuild. You press a small amount between your fingertips before applying it. It is thick, almost viscous, amber-colored in its purest form. It spreads slowly and absorbs more slowly still, which is exactly the point. It is not designed to vanish. It is designed to stay in contact with the tissue long enough to do its work. Run your thumb across the back of your hand after applying it, and you will feel the drag of it, the resistance, the way it refuses to disappear. That resistance is the compound staying where it needs to be. This is what Botox cannot do. Botox freezes. Castor oil rebuilds. They are not competing products in any meaningful sense. One is a temporary cosmetic intervention. The other is a biological process. One requires a medical professional and a needle. The other requires a bottle and your own 2 hands. The University of Benin data didn't disappear entirely. Researchers continued working. The compound kept appearing in wound healing studies, dermatological trials, and hair loss research. The evidence kept accumulating in academic journals that most consumers never read. Meanwhile, the industry kept selling paralysis as the only answer worth considering. The Amish remedy had already moved past the question. The third ingredient is beeswax. Pure, unbleached, pulled from the same hives that gave the honey. It is the color of pale gold when it is fresh, and it carries the faint smell of the hive, warm, slightly sweet, unmistakably alive. And this is where the remedy stops being a collection of individual ingredients and becomes something greater than the sum of its parts. Beeswax does not penetrate the skin the way castor oil does. It does not plump the tissue the way honey does. What it does is seal. It forms a breathable, protective barrier on the surface of the skin that locks in everything applied beneath it. The honey's moisture, the castor oil's ricinoleic acid, the skin's own natural oils that would otherwise evaporate into the air overnight. Beeswax holds all of it in place and gives the deeper compounds the time they need to work. Without it, you are applying ingredients that do their best work in the first few minutes and then dissipate. With it, you are creating a sustained delivery system that works through the night, hour after hour, while you sleep. Unbleached beeswax retains its natural vitamin A content. Vitamin A is the compound that retinol is derived from. The synthetic version, processed and concentrated and sold at significant markup, is attempting to replicate what unbleached beeswax delivers in its natural form. The Amish were not using a primitive version of a modern ingredient. They were using the original. The industry built a premium product category around a compound that was already present in the wax their grandmothers had been applying to their faces for generations. The laboratory did not discover vitamin A for the skin. It discovered how to charge $40 a milliliter for something that was already sitting in a farmhouse pantry in Lancaster County. The real question isn't whether this works. It's why you wait.